It is so good to be here. Want to show you a quick little video clip to set the stage. So remember a few years ago, the movie Sea Biscuits, remember that? There's a great scene in there that just provides a wonderful foundation of where I want to go. So watch this.
Why don't you just breeze them around one turn, give the folks a look.
Great.
Red Pollard, Mr. and Mrs. Howard.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Well, we'll just be moving on.
Does he breeze?
Well, we'll find out.
Seems pretty fast.
Yeah, in every direction. Hell, he's so beat up, it's hard to tell what he's like. I just can't help feeling they got him so screwed up running in a circle, he's forgotten what he was born to do. He just needs to learn how to be a horse again.
Well, how do you do that?
How far do you want me to take him?
Charlie stops.
Okay. That seems like a pretty good ride.
Hope so.
My very favorite lines of that movie. So what that trainer said, they've got him so screwed up running circles that he's forgotten what he was born to do. He needs to learn how to be a horse again. You know, in so many ways, that's true for us as men. That you think about our culture, you think about our life, that oftentimes we're so screwed up running around circles that we've forgotten what we were born to do. And God makes it so clear what we were born to do. Jesus said that of all the commandments, when asked, boy, God's given us all these commandments, what's the most important? As you remember, he said to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love others as we love ourselves. So when you look at that, as far as that's our destiny, that's our calling, that's our purpose here. That's what we were born to do, is to love God, to love others. But so often, though, it's hard to figure out, so as men, what does that really look like then? If I'm loving God, if I'm loving others well, how do I know? What's the evidence? Because we live in a culture that twists love. We have an enemy who wants to lie and make us believe in lies about love. I mean, even defining love can be difficult. Real quick, just turn to a neighbor, okay? You've got 9 seconds to do this. How would you answer or fill in the blank, love is blank? How would you answer that? Just turn to someone and say, love is whatever. And I didn't say making love is. I can hear, and I know where some of you went, but I imagine if we went around the room, right, at each table, there's a whole lot of ways that we can define love is. What does that look like? And that's really, hopefully, at the end of this, that I'm going to give you a really, really simple way to answer that. So if ever asked, that you'll know love is blank. As I said, we live in a culture that twists love. We have an enemy that wants us to buy into lies and myths about love. Because he doesn't want us to live out our calling to be great at loving. I saw this one time, just the way that love can be twisted. I saw this with my own daughter. So my oldest daughter now is 25. She's married, lives in Boulder, Colorado, with her husband. When she was 5, this was her very first day of kindergarten. And I don't know what it was like for you on that first day, sending your first child kind of off to school. It was really hard on my wife. So she's crying. I mean, the whole morning just going on and on about, I'm losing my baby. And I was just excited to get the first one out of our home. And so that morning, loading Taylor up on the bus, they just said, hey, get her on the bus first day, send her off. So again, Erin's crying. I'm trying to get her back in the house before the neighbors, wonder, what did I do to her this time to make her cry? Well, Erin was in graduate school at the time, so on this particular day, on Monday, she was in class all day, well into the evening, so she couldn't be home to greet Taylor. That was now my job. And as I came home early from work to greet Taylor, to 3, whatever, I found a note from my wife laying out like bullet points of how I was to greet her. Like this is a challenge, right? I mean, seriously, it said be there at 3:30 on the porch, fix her a snack, act excited. And I'm like, am I a moron? I mean, whatever. And so after I ate her snack, I was on the porch and the bus pulls up and I was excited to hear about her first day. And so she, as all the kids are getting off the bus, I'm looking for Taylor, and I spot Taylor, and I was confused. As I'm watching her get off the bus, I'm not sure what's going on because I found her holding hands with a boy. And not like this, like that, like that would be more like a bus buddy or a friend. That would have been fine. They were full on, like interlaced, at 5. So I'm watching this. And I'm just trying to figure it out. Well, she's dragging this boy right up to me. So I have no time to process any of this before she yells out. She goes, Dad, she goes, hi, this is Hank. She goes, we're in love and we're going to get married. I'm looking at my watch thinking, okay, you've been gone for like 8 hours. What is happening in this school? You're getting homeschooled starting tomorrow. But here these two were. And so I'll never forget just thinking, well, I gotta mess with them a little bit. And I said, really? I said, so, wow. I said, you guys are in love? Uh-huh. And you're going to get married? Mm-hmm. I said, well, congratulations. That's wonderful. I said, but have you guys thought through where you're going to live once you get married? And they kind of looked at each other, looked at me, looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders. And then Taylor grabs this boy, kind of drags him to the side of our porch, and they huddled up. They start to talk through this thing. I can hear them processing where they're going to live. And they came back, and Taylor says, Dad, if it's okay with you and Mom, Hank and I would like to live in the backyard in the little Tykes house. Remember those little plastic things for toddler? I think we had like a log cabin or something. And I said, sure. I said, Mom will love having you right there in the backyard. She can visit anytime. I said, Hank, you'll really appreciate that. And I said, but Hank, I said, Hank, in that you'll have my daughter at a plastic house, I said, have you given any thought to what you're going to need to really provide for her well? And again, big eyes, looked at her, looked at me, and shrugged his shoulders. And then together, again, they went right over and huddled up and started to talk this through. I'm not lying. It's disturbing to watch your 5-year-old daughter and her fiance problem solve better than you and your wife do. That was just wrong. But when they came back, Hank stepped up and he goes, well, we talked about it. We need 3 things. I said, really? All right, this should be good. What do you need? He goes, well, first of all, we need the TV and the remote. He goes, we need a box of Lucky Charms and a roll of toilet paper. And as a guy, that made sense to me, right? I'm like, we could live weeks off of those 3 things alone, and kind of high-fived him, welcomed him to our family, and it was so weird to watch these two over the next few weeks. And he lived in our neighborhood. They were always together, and when Taylor would talk about Hank, she would just tell us all the things he did at school, and he got the right question when the teacher asked, and he kicked the winning soccer goal out on the playground, and everything was so wonderful and positive. Until this one day I get home and I don't if you have kids, you know that feeling. I love it when I walk in and you hear the daddy's home and they come running at me. I just love that. As they get older, they stop doing that. They sort of like, oh, wait, you're still here? You know, that's what I get a lot. Anyway, so Taylor didn't do that. So as I found my wife and kissed her and said, hey, where's Taylor? She goes, well, your daughter is upstairs. Which usually means what? That they're in trouble, right, in some way. And so I found Taylor up on her bed, and she's crying, so I assumed that she had done something wrong, in trouble. I sat down, and she kind of fell into my arms. I'm just holding my little girl, and, honey, you all right? What's going on? Are you in trouble? No. Well, why are you crying? Just big tears. She goes, well, Daddy, you're never going to believe it, but today Hank broke up with me. So laughter probably wasn't what she was hoping for. And so, honey, I'm so sorry. I said, wow, that's got to be hard. She goes, it is. And I said, were you doing all right? And she goes, Daddy, she goes, I'm so mad at him. I said, yeah, well, that would make sense. I'm sure you feel rejected. She goes, no. She goes, you don't understand. She goes, I hate him, and I want him to die. So she gets that from my wife's side of the family, by the way. How wild. And as scary as that was, the part actually that I'll never forget is what she said next. Because I think that for most of us within our culture, we've bought into this. I'll never forget is my daughter, just big, big tears. I'm just holding her, and she said, and now, Daddy, she goes, now I'll never find someone who will love me. Now, that's from a 5-year-old little girl. I'll never find someone who will love me. I think of all the ways that our culture twists love and the evil one wants us to misunderstand love. I think that's one of the biggest ways is a belief, it's a myth, that we need to find someone who will love us. Sort of, I'm going to walk this earth searching for that someone, that special someone who will finally love me in the ways that I need to be loved. We see this, we read that there's quotes. I remember seeing a quote that says the greatest joy in life is to love and be loved. Well, you know what? Part of that is true. Part of it creates really difficult relationships. If I believe that I need someone to love me, then I will constantly be searching for people who will do that, and people are not capable of fulfilling that need. Because the truth is that God has already loved me completely. He has already met that need in my life 100%, whether I know that or not. That's the truth. The lie is that I need someone. The truth is that I've already completely been loved. Throughout His Scriptures, John 3:16, right? We know this one. For God, what? So loved the world. Not just loved the world, He so loved. Verse that says God has lavished His love upon us. He will never leave us nor forsake us. He has loved us with an everlasting love. There's verse after verse after verse throughout the Scriptures that remind us that we are already completely loved. I don't have this big love hole in my heart that I need to figure out how to get that filled. Again, I may not realize it, but that doesn't change the truth, is that I am completely loved. And why that's important is that instead of now using all this effort and energy to figure out how to get people to love me in the ways that I feel I need to be loved, instead of using my energy to get that, resting in the truth that I'm already loved frees me up. Now I can use my time and effort and energy to live out my calling. Again, he's forgotten why he was here. He's forgotten what it means to be a horse. I don't want to forget what it means to be a man. And that means that my calling is all about love. So being able to live out that calling begins with resting in the truth that I am already completely and thoroughly loved. But as humans, as men, we often get insecure about that. It's interesting, there's verses that explain love, but have to do it in a way to remind us that you and I are already loved. 1 John 4:11, it's one of my very, very favorite verses. It says, Beloved, if God so loved us, then we ought to love one another. Beloved means much loved. If God so loved us, what's interesting is the order. Before we can be reminded of what our calling is to love others, twice we have to be reminded that we are loved. Beloved, much loved, as God so loved us, so we ought to love others. Because we get insecure about that. We forget. We've got a culture that twists that, an enemy that wants us to forget that. He wants us to spend our time trying to figure out how to get others to love us. It's just not true. God has done that. Our calling is to love. Another verse in John 13, 34 and 35. Again, same thing. Watch the order. A new commandment that I give you, just as I have loved you. So again, Jesus now is building on the Old Testament commandment to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. He's saying, now, I love that commandment, but I'm giving you a new commandment. As I have loved you. Again, we're reminded, relax. Okay, you are so loved. I've lavished love upon you. Because you are so loved now, you ought to love others. And as a matter of fact, that's the evidence that we follow Christ. As I have loved you, so you ought to love others. And by this, that men will know you're my disciples. It's clear. That's our calling. That's the evidence that we're following Christ, is our ability then to love others. So again, let's get real practical, okay? If that's true, then how do we know that that's happening? If we're living out our calling to love, what will be then the evidence that we're doing that job? Love is what? Fill in the blank. I think the scriptures make it really, really clear of how to answer that. Saw this with another daughter, my college daughter. She's a junior in college. When she was 3 or 4, this little thing was the most important thing in her life. This is Gracie. So wherever Murphy went, Gracie was sure to follow. Murphy took Gracie everywhere. If you've got kids, your kids have a blanket or a stuffed animal, right, something that's so important that when she would lose little Gracie, right, life was over for her. And she'd come to me crying, sobbing, Daddy, I can't find Gracie. I can't go to sleep. And I'd spend half the time at home looking for this stupid little thing, this praying bunny, which I didn't even know they prayed. But anyway, to the point that I went out and I bought like 10 of these. I did. And I'd keep them in a drawer in our master bedroom. When she'd come to me and, I can't find Gracie, I'd say, hey, I know exactly where she is. You do? Oh, yeah, stay right here. I'll go get her. I'd just walk into the drawer, get out a new one, and walk it back. And she'd grab her and say, Daddy, thank you so much. And she looks so clean. I know, I cleaned her up for you. That's what I do. Mommy wouldn't do that, but I do that. It's so funny. Every once in a while, she'd find 2 of these. And she'd look at me and I'd say, honey, don't worry. That's what bunnies do. So I'll explain it later. Most important thing, I'll never forget this one day. We were getting ready to go on a family vacation. So we were going to Disney World. Murphy had never been. Real excited. I don't know about you. I like going on vacations. I just hate getting ready to go on vacations, right? It's chaotic and exhausting and just getting everybody packed and all the car loaded. And so we were running late, and I've got all the luggage in. I've got most of the family in. I just can't find little Murphy. I'm honking the horn, and all of a sudden she comes running out of the garage door, holding Gracie, going, Daddy, don't worry. I found her. Now, I'd hid this one because it was the last one. They all were gone except for one. And I hid her because I didn't want her to take her, because I knew that inevitably she's going to lose Gracie, and I'll spend all my time, instead of being at Disney World, be at the mall looking for another one of these, whatever. So she's running up to me. I'm thinking, oh. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I've got to come up with a quick way to convince Murphy to leave Gracie home, which isn't easy. So she's running up to me, smiling, shaking Gracie. I'm trying to think of something to say to her to convince her to leave her. Well, I couldn't really think of anything. So she gets to me, and she's holding up, and I said, hey, Murph. I said, I see you've got Gracie. Yes. I said, well, honey, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to leave Gracie home. She went, why? I said, well, I was still trying to come up with something, some legitimate reason. I just went with the first thing that popped in my mind. I said, honey, the airlines, they'll only allow so much luggage and weight, and sadly, honey, Gracie's going to put us over the limit. So I looked at my wife, and she's going, for real? You have a doctorate, and that's what you came up with? Shh. So I had to go with it. So I said, yeah, honey. And so, of course, Murphy's arguing with me. And I said, I know it's frustrating, too. We'll write a strongly worded letter to the airline later. But for now, go put Gracie back. We got to leave. We're late. Daddy, can I ask you one question? Honey, no. Big tears. We got to go. What? She goes, Daddy, are we going to have fun at Disney World? I said, well, yeah, right there in the brochure. It says it's the happiest place on earth. And I'm telling her about all that we're going to do. And I get her ramped up, and I said, so, honey, go put Gracie back, and we can get going. She just stands there, just staring at Gracie, again, big tears just falling down. She goes, well, Daddy, she goes, if that's how much fun we're going to have, I love Gracie so much that I want you to take her, and I'll stay home. Really? So I turned to my wife for help. You're my helpmate. Jump in, help out, And she's just standing there smiling, just going, this is too fun to watch. You big lug nut. You. What do you say to that? I mean, she was dead serious. She was willing to stay home so that Gracie could go. Of course, I picked them both up, and I said, honey, what was I thinking? It wouldn't be the same trip without Gracie, so I buckled them both in, and off we went. So I tell you this story, first of all, don't pay attention to how I parent, okay? That'll mess you up, because otherwise you'll miss what I think is the answer to that statement, love is blank. I think it's what Murphy did that day. So if you were to put a word to what Murphy did when she was willing to give up her place at Disney World for little Gracie, what would you call that? Yeah, sacrifice. I think that's the essence of when we think about how do we really put love into action. I think the scriptures make it so clear that that's what we do. So finish out John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he what? Yeah, that he gave his son. In other words, he sacrificed his greatest treasure for us. In so many ways, that's not to the same extent, obviously, but that's what Murphy was doing. Sacrifice is such an interesting concept. Sacrifice is when you take something that you own, so you have to possess it. Simply because Murphy was our daughter, she possessed a ticket, right, to Disney World. It has to be something that you possess, but it also has to be something that you value. You can't take something that you own, like a old pillow, and give that away and think, man, what a wonderful sacrifice I just made. It's got to be something that we own and that we value. And Murphy valued that ticket to Disney World. And then we give that thing up, whatever it is, our time, our resources, our money, whatever it is, we give that to someone else that we consider to be more valuable. It's like Philippians 2:3 that says, in humility, consider others more important. That doesn't mean that you're not important. So it's not saying, hey, you're a worm, you're worthless, so see others as at least they're valuable. You're not. It's not saying that at all. It's saying just that you are valuable, but consider others to be more valuable than us. So we take something that we possess, that we value, and then we give that away to someone else that we consider to be more valuable. It's so interesting how often in the scriptures God pairs the idea of love with sacrifice. So John 3:16, we talked about that one. Listen to some of these others. No greater love has no one than this, but to lay down one life for his friends. That's in John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down our life for the ones that we love. I was helping my youngest daughter, Annie, as we memorize verses and things, so we were memorizing that one. So John 15:13. No greater love than to lay down one's life for our friends. And so she was really practicing that. I'll never forget one morning she came down for breakfast. So I was getting the kids ready. So I had made bacon. We only had a few pieces left. And Annie loves bacon. Like, that is all that child will eat in the morning for breakfast. And who blames her, right? Okay, I was disappointed that we had none. But anyway, ham is close, right? Okay, sausage, fine. But man, bacon, that crispy bacon, ugh. So Annie comes down. She's got her 3 pieces of bacon every morning. Same thing, 3 pieces. That's all that was left. So my other daughter, Murphy, little Gracie's mom, okay, she came down. And so Murphy was in high school, and so she, there's nothing better, right, than that smell of bacon. She walks into the kitchen and went, oh, she goes, bacon, where is it? And I said, hey, man, you should have gotten here a little bit earlier. I said, it's gone. Annie's got the last bits of it. And so you could see Annie holding the last 2 pieces in her hand, really wrestling. And Murphy goes, hey, don't worry about it. And Annie goes, no. She goes, Murphy, here. So she hands her over a piece of bacon. And then she looks at me and she goes, Daddy. She goes, did you see that? I said, yeah, that was really nice. She goes, no. She goes, I laid down my life for Murphy. I said, not as much as the pig did for you, but yeah, pretty close. Yeah. No greater love. God so loved the world that he gave his son. There's only 2 times in the whole Bible that we're told to do something every day. Do you know this? Only twice. You think about all the great things that are throughout the scriptures, only twice are we told to do something daily. In Hebrews 3:13, we're told to encourage one another daily. But then it also says that we are to take up our cross daily. In other words, sacrifice. When we think of the cross, that's all about sacrifice. I think one of my very favorite verses, though, just that illustrates this is 1 John 3:16. And just listen to the words. It starts off and says, this is how we know what love is. I mean, can it be any more plain and clear? This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, so we ought to lay down our life for others. That has changed my life. Again, I want to live out God's calling on my life. I want to live out this purpose, which is to love. And if we're going to do that well, it begins by really understanding that I am so thoroughly, completely loved. I don't have to go out and search. I don't have to get people to love me. I don't have to manipulate my wife to love me in certain ways. God's already doing that. So for me to stay plugged in, to really receive God's love, I can't give what I don't have. So for me to sacrifice will always come out of a fullness in our heart, and that only comes from God, from his love, from opening our hearts to him. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, right, said one time, used this phrase, above all else. So the one time, the guy that doled out all this amazing wisdom, one time said, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. In other words, he's saying that God's love in our hearts is so worth guarding. God's love, that wellspring of life, flows through our hearts. So my job is to stay plugged into God, to get full, so that I abundantly have love to then give out to others. In John 10:10, it says that Jesus came to give us life, right? And to give it to the full, to give it abundantly. He not only wants our hearts given to him, but he wants our hearts full of love. So we can just give that out, and that's going to show up as sacrifice. It's taking things that we own, that we value, and giving them to others that we consider to be more valuable. That's what's true. Love is sacrifice. God, we thank you so much for your love, for the way that you love us. We thank you that we never have to wonder, to worry if you're loving us, if your love's available. You said it always is. I thank you for the truth, knowing that our need to be loved has already been fully met by you. God, for some of us, we just need that reminder. And this world twists that. We have an enemy that wants us to believe that we need others to love us, God. And just help us to rest in the truth that you've already met that need in us. Lord, help just set our hearts free so that we can turn our efforts and time and attention to really serving, to sacrificing others. God, for some of us, we may not even know you. So God, for some, maybe there's some men here right now who have never fully understood what that promise, that gift of love that you gave your son to die for us. All we have to do is to believe in him, to trust in him, to give our heart to him. And that you take care of the rest. So if that's you this morning, man, open your heart to God. Just receive his love. Give your life to Christ. To be a Christ follower really means that we love. I thank you for how you're going to help us do this, Lord. Put someone on our mind right now, Lord. Maybe it's a wife, maybe it's a child, a friend, a colleague, a parent, a sibling, Lord. Someone in our life that matters to us, God. And help us to think of some ways that we could sacrifice for that person today. We ask these things in your precious name. Amen. Thank you.